Hey, welcome to our latest conversation on Lead, Convert, Retain. I'm joined, as usual, by my good friends John Preston from Baseline Digital Marketing, Keith Small from Your Success. And for those of you who don't know me, probably means you're not on LinkedIn, but if you do, I apologize for all the LinkedIn stuff, including this. Well, I don't, because it's all educational. Guy Griffiths from GG Fit. John deals a lot with leads, Keith deals a lot with sales, and I deal a lot with member retention, so health clubs. So we're always chatting, always kind of kicking around ideas. And the idea of these short, maybe chats is just to help put it out there a bit, maybe get some comments, maybe get some feedback and thoughts, but hopefully to help the industry, help health, fitness clubs, and other kind of membership organizations to just think about differently, think a little bit differently about how they handle membership sales. And one of the things we've been chatting about this week is people and interactions. I read an article last weekend, I think, about how interactions are being designed out of our lives. For example, you can go to the supermarket and you can self-check out, which is fine. You also probably are ordering food at certain restaurants on a tablet or a screen. You're checking out at the petrol station, maybe paying digitally. So we're not interacting as much. And one of the things we've all been chatting about is the fact that in health clubs and gyms and leisure centres, it is a great place to go and have a chat or have a coffee, and it's a community, and all this kind of thing is important. And we just started thinking about retaining people digitally and how we do sales online a little bit more, and how there's a lot more lead gen online. But to do it really well, you have to have a conversation. So we thought we'd have a bit of a chat about that. Are we going to throw straight over to John to start at the beginning and talking about leads? Lots of lead gen is digital, right, John? But where does the actual
Yeah,
conversation come in?
um, I think the last conversation we had was very much about referrals, which are very much not digital. Um, a huge part of what we do is definitely within the digital space and automated. And I'm a huge fan of automations and processes and having automated drip sequences and this sort of thing. Um, And my background before being here was very much into automations and chatbots, and I was probably one of the first in the world developing chatbots. And my thought process was with that was that these automations are absolutely fabulous, and people can get information straight away. The fact that you can respond to somebody the moment they've submitted a request for information or express some interest, because I've said before about there is this golden window of 5 minutes where if you can get to somebody that quickly, then your chances of converting are so much higher. So to be able to automate that process, because let's be honest, a lot of our teams in club are very, very busy. They potentially sometimes can't get to that. um, huge fan of that. But these processes and these automations, if they're done properly, it's always about being able to instigate a conversation with a real person. So it could be a case of that you're pre-qualifying people, and when that person is ready to talk, then it then goes over to a human, because there just isn't a substitute. An AI is great and it's really clever, but it's not a substitute. It's not the same, and that interaction and that and Keith will go much more into this, I imagine, that the sales side of something is more about questioning and listening to that question and the right responses, and your automations aren't going to do that. So the digital side of it, the automation side of it, always has to lead to right person, right conversation, right time. And if it's done properly, then it's a real good merge of using the technology in the right way, but just to create more conversations, more of the right conversations, if you like. And
Yeah.
uh,
And there's a data gathering bit, isn't there, in
yeah,
terms of how many people are asking about the pool timetable, for example, and recognizing that people are asking about that and handling those things so that the staff can then have that information at their fingertips when they're actually speaking to the person about the sale or just the visit.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're in a day and age where people are not patient. So if I go somewhere, I want to be able to find an answer now. I don't want to have to phone up or scroll through the website. If I can just go to a system somewhere and find the information I want within 10 seconds, great, that's perfect. But then if I've got an issue with my membership, or perhaps I've stopped going for some reason, for somebody to phone me up and say, is there something we can do, an actual human, to make me feel like I matter and that I'm not just a number, then I'm going to be a lot more receptive to that. Um, Interesting, myself and Keith, because we do work very closely together in certainly some of the facilities that we both look after. We were setting up an automated response to, this is actually a really, really good example of a really great mix of digital and having a conversation, because we were getting leads in, all right, and I constantly go on to the sales managers and the teams about, you've got to get to them quickly. So we're finding that to get people chatting initially, sometimes a phone call. So, if you get a phone call from some random place, just, I'm not answering that. Or you sit there and wait until it's gone off and see if they left you a message, that sort of thing. Or is it just me that does that? But anyway, so an email quite often gets ignored. The open rates are pretty poor on emails. So by all means, send one, because it doesn't cost very much. A phone call, again, some people do not want to speak on the phone. Text or WhatsApp, massively high open rates. The engagement with it is actually really good because it's quite non-threatening. It's a place where people are generally, they're already there, they're comfortable with that platform. So we're getting the teams to use business WhatsApp. Now you can automate that, and I'm going back to my, bot building days here, that actually you can automate that initial trigger and the conversation, and it can be quite smart. But myself and Keith were there going, that's not a good use of this technology. We've set this up, the leads have come in, we've got really decent sales teams. Let's let them do the job. Let's let them do this. The leads have come in. We've told you the leads have come in. Here's the system that you can approach them. Send them a personal message. Get on there and try and create that conversation with these leads by using that technology to create the conversation.
And I think the thing is, as you rightly said, I'm a big fan of all the opportunities that this provides for us, for people, in terms of follow-up, support, connection. But it's a partnership. It's not a reliance on that doing the whole job, because there is going to be a point where if you're coming to a health club, or you're going to a leisure centre, or you're going to a gym, when connection becomes important. And we know that the connection with a friendly face, a team member that makes you feel welcome and comfortable, or just being able to show an interest in you, or being able to ask a few extra questions, makes the big difference. You don't always get that. And having a personalized message come through feels good, because you feel valuable. And the interesting thing, before I came on this, on our call today, I had a conversation with an organization who have done some wonderful investment in digital and automated messages going out, which is generating the leads, and the leads are booking, and so on and so forth. But they stopped investing in people and staff training and team training and interaction, which means when those inquiries are coming through, they're not getting the best value, because either one, as John isolated, they're not being connected with quickly enough after they've made their initial inquiry and the booking hasn't gone through, or two, when they come in, the experience they get face to face doesn't sort of match the experience they've had digitally. And some of that comes down to confidence, team consistency. What is it actually we're trying to achieve with these connections? And for me personally, there needs to be a balance. So we do really well with the online. We do brilliantly in terms of generating the lead digitally, and the inquiry comes in. Then what? And when that team or people training and interaction is paused or not seen as important as this progress we're making digitally, then we're missing a trick. And if everything can work together and people know where they're going, and in terms of staff members and team members know what they should be delivering, how they should be doing those inquiries, the aims we've got in terms of response times, but then also being confident enough and excited or happy to deal with those inquiries when people come through the door, that experience becomes seamless. And we're not just seeing an uplift in the wonderful work John's doing in terms of generating those leads, but we're seeing a conversion rate that goes with it as well. So the investment in all those areas is paying off. And ultimately, we are creating a great experience, but importantly, we're seeing our membership numbers increase. We're seeing our communities grow. And then you're back onto the referrals we talked about last week. But it's that whole thing about making sure things are seamless and knowing when to pick up the phone and make a conversation, or to when to send a personal message. But importantly, when you've had all this information come through from people who have inquired, when they come to the facility or the club or the gym or the leisure centre, being able to integrate that in maybe some of the conversation. Thanks for inquiry you mentioned. And now it's like, now we're back to personal again. So for me, as I said, massive opportunity to bring the two together, but it just requires not just investment in the online and the digital side, but the team that are backing it up, the people that are welcoming you when you come in. What does that next step look like to engage with you and encourage you to take that next step, answer any questions, or even we know there's potential barriers that people have to getting started in terms of uncertainties, previous experiences, and so on. We can be in a position to be able to help people through that process by asking the right questions, introducing them to things that work for them, and matching all their needs. A lot of them will be highlighted to us via their inquiry journey. So, it's a massive opportunity to bring it all together.
Yeah, there's when you get, going back 10, 20 years, there was no online joining. There now is online joining, and it's a great thing. One of the things we often look at from a retention and that initial journey, so as soon as Keith has delivered the sale, or people have joined online because that process is so slick, is encouraging people to have some kind of first appointment, one-to-one, face-to-face induction. We don't call it that much these days, but we know that a couple of large, low-cost gyms have, up to 10% of their joiners never visit. And that's not so bad in other clubs that we work with, more public sector or private sector, but there are still people who join online and never visit. And triggers and reminders and nudges by email and by text saying, this is what you'll get from your activation session. Will build your confidence, because not only are the new members not confident, sometimes the staff aren't confident to do that as well. So building that confidence and having a standard or structured process to try and get people to make that first visit. And the job of that first visit is, let's just make them make another one. We don't need to put them through their paces. But all of that has to be an interaction. And one of the best ways to get those people in who've not been in after 7 days is going back to what you're saying, the phone call, the 7-day phone call. You don't have to ring everyone at 7 days. Some people will have made 7 visits in 7 days. They don't necessarily need a 7-day call. But if someone hasn't visited, you better be ringing them, because if they've not visited by day 7, they're already starting to drift. But that makes me come back to thinking about leads and thinking about the 7. It used to be 7 points of contact to a sale. Again, I'm going probably 40, 50 years. And but it was 7 points to a sale. I'm not that old, but I can't remember who coined the phrase 7 points to 7 contacts to a sale. But that was when we were talking about probably a face-to-face contact, maybe a phone call, maybe a letter, right? It had to be one of those of the 7. But it's a bit more than that now, John, isn't it?
Well, this was a discussion when we bumped into each other earlier on this week. And actually, you gave me the stat. How many was it? How many? Is it 20?
28.
28 points, touch points. And obviously, you can't do all of those in person. So we were looking at, well, what actually counts as a touch point before you get through to that, and the vast majority is digital. So they'll see social media ads, or they drive past a digital display that we were looking at, or they've had the emails, or they had the WhatsApps, and then then you're into that kind of more personal approach. So, again, it's demonstrating how there is the real good mix of utilizing your digital and other media effectively to instigate the conversations.
Yeah, it's a blend, right? We're not talking you've got to drive past the digital poster 28 times. Well, maybe you have if that's all you're doing, but that's probably not going to get the sale. But if the old 7 points of contact were, say, face to face or phone or letter, and we go, okay, we're going to include email, but email's probably worth email open rate in the fitness industry. Anyone know the stat? Drop it in the comments quick. But it's around 20-25%. So only 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 emails are getting opened. Generally, most of the clubs that we work with do a lot better than that. It's more like 50%, I would say, with good subject lines and all the other good stuff. But email isn't worth as much as a letter. And Facebook ad, although it probably cost quite a lot pay per click costs a lot, it's not worth the same as a face-to-face interaction. So all those digital touch points are good, and if you get 20 of them to happen, you might be now driving a face-to-face interaction. And that's not just lead gen, it's not just sales, it's retention as well. We send emails and texts and WhatsApps and push notifications through the app, but none of them are worth a hello or a goodbye, when are we going to see you next in the gym. But those digital touch points make the physical ones happen. It's really hard to have a physical hello to someone who's not been in for 3 weeks.
You make such a good point.
So you're going to have to do something else.
Yeah, one of the things, and I don't mind just for a second here, this is crossing out of the sector for a moment, but staying in hospitality. I did some work for an organisation many years ago, and one of the team leaders at the time recently moved into hospitality. He said, "Oh, Keith, that work you did with us, do you think you could cross over?" And absolutely. And I took a lot of inspiration from some of the work that you do, Guy. And this was about service delivery. And they had seen some incredible numbers in terms of people booking into their restaurant through an increased digital presence, social media ads, people booking online for tables and so on. The bit they were missing was repeat business. This is a local restaurant. This is not people that are transient coming in and out. This is people that serve local customers, and you could argue cost of living and so on. However, one of the bits they found was there'd been no team training for established staff members and certainly for new recruits coming in. So there was this kind of a greet someone, be welcoming, be helpful, but that meant so many different things. So we looked at delivering a structure when people came in terms of how they were greeted. Checkbacks, is everything, how's your meal? Because the food was great, but it was the experience that was missing out on, and that was coming back from follow-on feedback. But what we looked at basically was how you then connected with your customer, how you greeted them when they arrived, how you checked back with them, but then also asking them to inform customers, oh, by the way, we're having a special event in 2 weeks' time. Would you like some information? Scan your QR code, make another booking. And because the team were now switched on to asking about the next visit, as we talk about, and making another connection, another touch point, all of a sudden their repeat business started to increase. And from that, they were bringing friends to enjoy the experience simply because there was customer interaction. So if you see that in various sectors, people are using online booking and social media ads to, drive people to make a booking or to try things out, the missing bit was still the experience when they arrived. And what doesn't change is the reason to come back is, yes, the food is great, but it's not necessarily all of it. I want a great experience. I want to feel valued. And I want to know what's coming next. I want you to tell me why I'm coming back, not just rely on the fact and keep my fingers crossed that it's going to happen because we've done well. And it's what's the next touch point? And I think, again, so much of that with the work that you do comes from how do our teams interact with customers, not just once they've joined, but when they come into the building, how are you getting on? What's your next visit? Don't forget, have you booked your class? All those bits. And if we're missing those key points, if the teams aren't being trained or given a consistent message to deliver, some people will be doing it brilliantly, naturally, and there'll be others that just miss it because they've not been asked to do it. So, as I said, massive opportunity to link everything together, but that human experience, that customer experience, is so important to continued success. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could I?
So, yeah, go on, add something on, John. But then we'll do Or we'll do a takeaway each,
Yeah.
maybe after
Okay.
that. Or is this your takeaway?
No, well, it's just really a good demonstration of everything that you're talking about here. Is again, a conversation I had with one of the sales managers was, how do we know whether the advertising that we're doing, so paid advertising, how do we know that it's effective? And it all comes down to knowing your numbers. And let's say, for example, because leads, we're doing very well with the lead generation. It's not massively expensive. It's costing maybe £2.50, £3 to get a reasonable lead in. And then what makes it effective is, of course, knowing your numbers. So which is, so how many are we converting, and of those people, what is the lifetime value? And then so there's those two elements there. So how many are we converting? So how effective are our sales teams and the process that we're doing? Yeah. And then what is the lifetime value? So just by increasing those two elements of any sort of advertising campaign, because, generally speaking, if you're talking about lead generation, if you convert 1 in 10, you're doing all right. You're doing pretty well with that. So the sales manager's there saying, well, we need better leads. And it's actually, well, you can tweak the sort of front end lead generation, but then look at, it would be just as easy to look at, well, is our process for approaching those leads and speaking to those leads and getting them in, and the actual sales process effective? Are we doing that correctly with the right conversations? Is really, really important. And then even more important is that lifetime value. So if, a customer who stays for 1 year isn't that great, but if they stay for 2.5 years, then, you one sale is worth 1,700 quid, 1,800 quid.
Yeah.
It's
All the cost of it is halved, but yeah, or a third.
it's just massively
absolutely.
important that those retention strategies and the actual conversion strategies have to be right for any sort of advertising to be effective and cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the five levers of business growth, absolutely more leads or better conversions, but lifetime value. You could forget about sales for a bit and just improve your lifetime value. That will grow your business. But in terms of a quick takeaway, thinking about talking and conversations and communicating with people, have a think. I'll give you 30 seconds. So I'll go first if you like. For me, it is the digital comms are fine, but share with your staff, so the people on the front desk, the people on the gym floor, what is being sent. And when you change that each month or each quarter, that we miss you, guy, come back soon for a smoothie, workout, this particular class. When you change that message up, make sure the staff know what is going out to absentees, so that when absentees come back, or whatever other comms, so share all the comms you're sending with your staff, make sure they're aware of what's going out this week. Because then when people come in and go, I've got this message, it says I need to have a program review, the staff go, great, let's have that interaction. So the digital stuff's all great, but be ready for the conversations would be my tip. Over to you, Keith, for a quick wrap up or takeaway.
I guess it kind of ties in with what you're saying. It's strategy and communication. What is the expectation when somebody walks into the building? What are we delivering? Whatever team you're part of, what are you giving to that customer experience? If you've got that nailed down, you've got consistency, you know that whenever you come into the building, it's going to be the same experience, maybe delivered by a slightly different personality, but certainly the same level of service. That for me is certainly the takeaway on that.
And John?
Okay, so for me, obviously, big fan of digital and automation and processes, but set them up in the right way. Set them up so that they create conversations. Right conversation, right person, right time.
Perfect. Brilliant. So clear right there. Good work, guys. Listen, if you want, well, first of all, you can probably tell that we work on these kind of things together at different clubs. If you want to reach out to one or two or all three of us to help your club, that's not the main aim, but it's the kind of subliminal aim, I suppose, less subliminal when I say it. But yeah, reach out to any of us for some help or some advice or tips, or drop us a question. I'm always happy to get LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to find all three of us. But LinkedIn DMs, we'll come back to you with a couple of tips. Equally though, if you've got, and we've got lots of ideas of things we can discuss and we'll discuss in future episodes, but if you want us to really go into a particular topic, we'd love to hear from you. We'll give you a shout out if you want, or even get guests on maybe. It might be something just two of us do or all three of us do. But if you've got other lead, convert and or retain questions, drop them in the comments below wherever you're watching this. And yeah, we'll put something together for you, not necessarily next time, but the time after that. I think that's probably all. Anything else to say, guys?
Great talking to you three, as always. Great. Always good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. So yeah, thanks chaps. Thanks for watching and listening wherever you are. Leave us a comment and see you soon.